Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Doctor Who podcast. I'm Jessica Nunn.
And I'm her husband and co-host, Phillip Gilthus.
Now, we're going to have to speed through this because the cat, I suspect, is currently asleep on our bed. Mm-hmm. And so we need to get through this before he realizes we're podcasting and needs to come in and interfere, as he usually does.
That's right.
So let's whoop through this thing.
Well, we're going to be talking about one of the full series of Doctor Who that we just finished watching. And that is Series 11, but I don't know, maybe not the one you're thinking of, or maybe it is. We're talking about the actual Series 11, or at least in the classic scale of things. And that is the last series featuring Jon Pertwee as the Third Doctor.
Yes.
I was trying to remember what Series 3 New Who is, and I was like, I don't know, I can't remember off the top of my head. I was like, is that Matt Smith, Peter Capaldi? I don't remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. So,
but it's fun to watch.
Exactly. Brain hurted. All right. And then for our Inside the TARDIS library, we're going to do a bit of a rerun, but not really, because we're going to be talking once again about Clever Dick Films' YouTube video about the Jon Pertwee era, but we're going to talk about it as folks who have just finished watching the entire Jon Pertwee era for the first time.
Yes.
So, but we're just going to concentrate on Series 11 for the moment.
Okay.
So, that's sort of the biggest thing, I suppose, and maybe you disagree, but is the introduction of a new companion.
I think it's the biggest thing ever, because I think I'd be interested in a poll, but I do feel like Miss Sarah Jane is certainly the most well-known companion out there.
Right.
And so, a fan favorite all round. Like, even New Who knows Sarah Jane.
Right. And having now seen it, what did you think of her introduction, and what little you've seen of her for, 5 stories or however many it's been?
Yeah, I like Sarah Jane. It's really interesting to look at, particularly the third, and I know we're just looking at the 11th season.
Sure, we can do whatever.
Well, thank you, baby. Looking at Jon Pertwee's run, you've got, what's her name?
I know we can never remember their names. Liz Shaw.
Shaw.
We just watched the video. That's the only reason normally
Yeah.
I just blank on all.
Tim Shaw's cousin.
Exactly. And you have Joe.
And then, of course, Joe. And Liz Shaw, I think, was moved into Joe Grant partly because she was pregnant, which is totally inappropriate, by the way. That is not good HR.
Well, I think it's fine to be pregnant.
No, it's absolutely fine to be pregnant. It's not okay to remove her as a companion because she's pregnant. But also the suggestion that she was too competent.
Right. Wasn't the, what's going on, doctor? What are we doing? More the, I see what's going on.
Yes. And so then Joe Grant comes on with her fantastically large doe eyes.
That you can't see out of.
Bless her cotton socks. And her what's happening, and this is interesting. And Sarah Jane sort of finds that middle. Mm-hmm. She very much, she is incredibly bright, but it's not science.
Yeah, I was about to say, that seems, and again, I don't know, I don't want to agree that the formula is non-science companion who always has to ask questions of the doctor. I mean, in that, maybe you would say that is the formula. I'm not saying you. I'm saying...
But I don't think that's a bad thing.
Right.
I think the idea that the companion is the voice of the audience is not a bad thing. Like, you need that person.
I'm thinking like a Martha Jones.
Yes.
Who is science-based.
But not aliens in outer space. And,
more medical than...
And I don't think Liz Shaw ever found that, and maybe that was simply because they were stuck on Earth,
right?
And so her knowledge was more useful in the scientific realm, not useful in the Doctor Who realm,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, then you get somebody like Martha Jones, and you're taking her to the past, and you're taking her to the future, and there are aliens and everywhere, and her scientific knowledge is great.
Doesn't really help during Shakespeare time.
But it doesn't help her during Shakespeare time, and it doesn't help her when they're stuck on the moon. And I think those are some of my favorite companions, the ones that are smart, whether it's book smart or just really bright.
Like a Donna.
Like a Donna, like an Amy,
Yeah, it's not
like a
book smart.
Rose
Yeah.
even, who's very much not book smart, but is,
learns quickly.
Plucky, which is a terrible
I know,
thing,
yes.
but, isn't the one to go screaming in the night like Perry.
Right.
So I think Sarah Jane has that, and it is quite possible, like I say, Sarah Jane sort of walks that line, but it's quite possible that in Sarah Jane's time, when the Doctor's able to move to other places, Liz Shaw would have been just as interesting a companion during that time. But the place where she was brought in was not an option, so Sarah Jane comes in and is just, that smart companion, but then who asks the smart questions?
She's a reporter.
And maybe that's the difference for me. Perry doesn't necessarily ask the smart questions because she's too busy screaming.
Right.
And same thing a little bit of Bonnie Langford.
Yeah, Mel?
Mel,
I was
yes.
like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
Yes, it is right.
There's just screaming. Whereas Ace is like, right, tell me what's happening and I will.
As she's running towards it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think those are the companions that I like, even if they sometimes don't have as much self-preservation. So, there's my Sarah Jane.
I thought it was interesting, and again, because this is my first time watching this, well, most of this season, we'd seen, both of us had watched Planet of the Spiders sometime before, but out of context. And I don't think maybe
together. I think we need to. I think we need to. You sound like we did it in opposite rooms, and we didn't. We watched it together.
It's a
sitting
Zoom
on
time.
The sofa.
Yeah. And we'd seen Time Warrior before, which we had discussed on here, but we hadn't talked about seen the other three stories in order, and so the context. Because how do they explain? Because I think this whole project, which we'll maybe talk about a little bit more in the library portion, is watching this all in order. Is there a storyline, or does it all? Is there an actual thread there? Or is it just random? But anyway, all this to say. How do you introduce a new companion who's not part of UNIT, the first non-UNIT companion for the Third Doctor, and then how does she stay? So in other words, you have the Time Warrior, where it's kind of an accident, and then you have Invasion of the Dinosaurs, which is sort of like, she came back and we're still dealing with the thing. There hasn't really been like you're official now, here's your TARDIS key. Not that she actually gets one. But
she's got it there at the end,
yes.
just for the record.
But anyway, you sort of don't have the proverbial giving the TARDIS key moment. But, it's just sort of like, the Doctor sees her worth and she sticks around.
Yeah, and I think some of that, again, is her choice, which, again, is a nice thing to see.
Right.
I mean, even in this last series of the Spiders, she shows up because what's his name? Yates calls her. So it's not, she's not just sticking around waiting for the Doctor to make an adventure for her. She comes in as a reporter because Yates calls her in because he knows her as a reporter. And so all of this is her choice. And I think that that's a really nice and interesting thing that clearly, even though we don't see any of it, she comes and goes by her own volition.
It's almost like a reverse Clara.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
No.
Because
it's just that I was thinking that. So with the 12th Doctor,
right? Instead of already established, because this isn't necessarily a complaint, but just like most companions, Clara is introduced as the companion, travels with the Doctor. That's the long and short of it. But then later they're like, let's give her a life, Whereas this is Sarah Jane already has a life, but it's a life that, as roving reporter, she's always going to stumble upon stuff. And so then that can always be like bringing the Doctor. And then sort of having this parallel careers between the Doctor and Sarah Jane that always intersect because they're always stumbling on mysteries.
And I think this is a place that it works where it didn't work with Clara. Again, partly because they don't establish it from the, if she had worked for Coal Hill?
Yep,
Is that
Academy.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Coal Hill Academy from the beginning.
Right.
That would have been really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It would have been particularly interesting because Coal Hill has such a reputation already. But they just sort of shove it at her, and then she's teaching. Oh, the doctor showed up. They run off for 2 weeks, and oh, she comes back at the end of break at the same day she left, and off she goes, and here's a little romance that isn't particularly interesting. And I think if they had established that from the get-go, and maybe they should do at some point, a Coal Hill Academy teacher. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm going for the alien from Doodly Doo, from the show. From the Young People show. Class. Okay. Yes. Because she was just brilliant in the beginning.
The teacher, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm blanking on her name, too, but I know you're talking
about.
Yeah, the blonde teacher.
Oh, my God. Wouldn't she be fun against anybody?
Yes.
Just this sort of, the doctor shows up and she's just so unimpressed. I just think it would be fantastic. So much fun. And then the doctor is forced to explain himself or herself in the face of that derision at all times. That would be so
the unimpressed
fun.
companion.
Yes. Consistently unimpressed. Because even when we get the alien companions, they're not as knowledgeable. And it would be an interesting twist because you'd still have to explain yourself all the time. They could still be a little bit of the audience voice, but she doesn't want to hear your explanations.
I think the closest, and we'll get to it, sometime as we maybe venture into our next regeneration here, when we get into the Romanas.
Yeah.
So, not which is not, I mean, alien, but not alien to the Doctor. But, because I'm thinking the unimpressed, I'm thinking Romana, the first Romana, tends to be a little less impressed than the second Romana, who's a little more, going with everything the Doctor goes with.
Yeah, but putting the Doctor on the back foot might be a lot of fun to watch. And I think you also see it a little bit with Missy.
That's true. Yeah, and it's a special case, but yes.
Again, yeah. Yes. No, absolutely. And so having a companion who does that, who is just a companion with no sort of Time Lord, is not a Time Lord. Not necessarily doesn't have the Time Lord experience, but is not a Time Lord would be really interesting.
It brings to mind our, I was going to say fake, but I don't know, our fake Ninth Doctor with the robot master. Because that's an unimpressed companion. I mean, technically it's a time, but technically not because it's a robot.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's he's the I don't know. It's a very American staple. I don't know if it can't be a British staple because it's an American staple about British. It's sort of like the master, sort of the American stereotype of like the British butler or the whatever who's always the snide remark.
I think it is a little bit. I think that comes a little bit from the British stereotype, an attempt to shake up class system to an extent.
Where you have the lower class. I don't know if I'm saying that correct, but you have the lower class sort of being sarcastic to their better or whatever.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, well, moving on to specific. We don't necessarily have to go, in the ground and with all of these, but just taking them one by one. Our first one is the Time Warrior. I don't know if you want to read the synopsis or not.
I desperately want to read the synopsis. When scientists start to go missing in the 20th century, the Doctor is called in by the Brigadier to investigate. His investigations lead him to deduce that they are being kidnapped through time. He sets off in pursuit, unknowingly kidnapping journalist Sarah Jane Smith in the process. Arriving in the Middle Ages, the Doctor and Sarah find themselves caught up in the machinations of the robber baron Irongron and his man from the stars. The alien, a Sontaran named Lynx, is arming him with modern weapons in return for helping him repair his damaged ship. And it's up to the Doctor and Sarah to stop him from ruining the Earth's timeline.
So, as I said, this is the first story of the last series of John Pertwee with our new companion, Sarah Jane Smith.
Yep.
The TARDIS is now working again. It started working, previous season, but this is sort of, we're kicking it off. I was going to say we go off Earth. That's a lie. It's on Earth. But at least we go back in time. And so, it's something we haven't seen in a long while, if ever, in the Third Doctor era. I don't think I'm sure I'm forgetting a story where they've gone back in time and Earth. But anyway, so what do you think of this sort of return? I mean, again, it's always funny to say return when you're talking about the Third Doctor, because we're looking backwards, not to what we know now. But at least this return to time traveling adventures.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched this one twice. I liked this one more in context. Still wasn't 100% crazy about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoy, there's not necessarily any dull moments. I mean, there may be some slower moments, but I mean, it's fairly action-packed. You have the Sontaran providing all his stuff. Of course, it's the introduction of the Sontarans. You have Sarah Jane on her adventure, the Doctor it's sort of how you read a Doctor Who story that came in with one group, the Doctor's with the other group, but they're both semi-interesting. You have the robber baron and his villains, and then you have the other castle or kingdom who are, I guess, the good guys, and you sort of go with that. And then you have the scientist, and like that one scientist who's always like he can't see, or he lost his glasses or something or whatever. He's a source of humor as much as there is, so it keeps things moving.
Yes,
so.
Yeah. This is so far from First Contact, rules. And
Yes.
First, do no harm. Is that the rule?
Yeah.
Yeah. Offering all the weapons, and I typically enjoy the Sontarans on individual levels. So,
this is a serious Sontaran.
It is. Yeah. Yes, he's not nearly as much fun as Strax is, but I like the Sontarans. They're fun. The potato heads. It's nice.
And this is...
they have more whiskers in this, don't they?
Yeah, a little rootier.
Yeah.
Now, this actor is the same one who plays... I'm going to say his name wrong. The Buddhist monk at the Planet of the Spiders.
Oh, right.
It's the same actor.
Oh, okay. So he goes from Sontaran to cultural appropriation.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
I say cultural appropriation, but technically he's a Time Lord, so I don't know if that's a given.
He's actually a projection of it. Anyway, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it.
So anyway, I thought that was a good way to kick off this season. Invasion of the Dinosaurs. Oh goodness. I'm
on it.
Okay,
I'm on it. I got it. The Third Doctor and Sarah arrive in 1970s London to find it has been evacuated because dinosaurs have appeared mysteriously. As the line between friends and enemies wavers, the Doctor soon discovers the dinosaurs are being brought to London via a time machine to further a plan to revert Earth back to a pre-technological golden age.
Make Earth great again.
Make Earth great again. I was thinking the same thing. I really wish, to be honest, sweetheart, and this is sort of an across-the-board podcast thing, that sometimes when these thoughts come into your head, you'd at least pause a minute because the thoughts are coming into my head at the same time, and it's not fair that you always get them out faster than I do. Rude.
I do like how it says 1970s London. It's not just they return to their time, because that's just where the series takes place.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. It's like they've been gone like a week or something in there.
Also, and you're going to find this funny. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
You're ready. I think it's like a Make Earth Great Again scenario.
It's just what I was thinking, darling.
High five, baby.
So let's talk about the dinosaur in the room.
I'll be honest, I remember very little about this one, so I'm assuming it happened, but it wasn't all that interesting.
Well, they're not great. They're not great. Let's just throw it out there, the dinosaurs.
I think that's...
I guess, if you don't remember, then it's not great. I'm just thinking, if we could fix the effects, would it fix the story? It's because, there's something there. I'm not saying there's not something there, but it's just a little distracting of no. I'm glad they tried, right? I don't want to say people shouldn't try. It's the 1970s London, as the synopsis says.
Yeah.
And they're doing the best they can with the effects and budget that they have. But, I don't know. I just felt like, it's one of those things when you're writing a story, I think about it as a playwright. Sort of the thing is, don't worry about what it's going to look like on stage. You just write what you want to write. And it's up to the director to make it happen.
But sometimes you sort of need to worry about, Don't write a play with realistic dinosaurs. That's
right.
Just, if you can't buy that woofy air thing on Amazon of the T-Rex,
right?
Don't include it.
Yeah. So I just, it hurts the story, I guess. It's hard to be like, I just feel like this is sort of like the stereotypical Doctor Who you would show someone and be like, oh, this.
Oh, yeah.
And it's
no,
like,
I
no,
don't-
yeah, you know, we hate to show that.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like I said, there's still good stuff going on. You know, there's it's the usual Dr. Sarah and Unit doing their thing.
I also think that Make Earth Great Again isn't the dinosaur time.
Well, I thought they're using the dinosaurs to scare people away so they can...
I'm not... Let's think this through, bad guys. Come on.
Well, speaking of thinking it through, this is our Captain Mike Yates Traitor episode.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, now I remember it, though, because there was the thing, and it was like, zoom, 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 zoom.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And then, like, the doctor had some special weapon, and Yates sabotaged it, and then he had to fix it. And Sarah was in the garage, and then there was a dinosaur.
This is such a weird... This is particularly... Like, I knew it was coming, because, obviously, the actors who played Yates and Benton and...
The Brigadier?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Joe.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I had to get to her last name first for some reason that time. Talking the thingy things that we watched.
Behind the sofa.
Yeah. So we
extras.
knew that this was coming. I knew it was coming. And then this happened, and I was like, okay, is this just an exit strategy? Is that what's happening? But then we get to our stuff, the one that we just
Planet of the Spiders.
finished, and there he is making a redemption. So in that case, what the heck was the point of this? And there's no real, like Yates calls Sarah Jane, and he's like, hey, sorry, I'm skipping ahead.
That's fine.
Weird things are happening with these spider people. He doesn't know that they're spider people, but that's all right. And she's like, yep, you were definitely a traitor, but I'm rocking up anyway. And then they never really mention.
I mean, I agree. I mean, it's just sort of, because what you're getting at is that Sarah doesn't have any, like, why should I listen to you, Mike? You know, it's almost like, it's a bit like she's just Joe, where they have a semi-flirty behavior, and, hey, it's Mike. And Sarah's like, oh, hey, Mike, what's up? You know, and then they just automatically, it's not like...
You almost killed us all with dinosaurs, but here I am, and...
the way I would fix that, you could still do it pretty easy, it's just like, you know, he contacts her, maybe meets in a coffee shop or something oblique, and then she's like, oh, how can I trust you? He's like, oh, it's a really good story, though. And then sort of entices her with the good story element,
but then
where she doesn't necessarily trust her, but he seems nice. And yeah.
But he's also sort of like, I went through a really rough time, and I made the bad choices, so I've come here to get all zen with my oming and all of that, and I'm trying to be a better person, Sarah Jane. There's none of that. It's just he calls her up and he's like, hey, I'm at this yoga place. Come see it.
Yeah,
and she's like, okay. And then they solve the crime. And the end. Hooray.
Yeah. The question is why do that? Why have... I mean, it is interesting to have one of your... I want to say main characters, your main secondary characters turn.
Absolutely.
And that's so, in as much as it is, but, you do have to...
But again, even then, even coming back to the dinosaurs, there's no explanation for it. I was distraught when Joe ran off with that hippie guy, and I wanted to ask her out, and so I was angry, and these guys came in, and they took advantage of my vulnerability. There's nothing. It's just, Yates is a bad guy. Oh, now Yates is a good guy, but there's no sort of, he doesn't come together with the Brigadier. There's nothing. It just, right. We still have him under contract, so we should use him for something.
Hey, you just got to sit out 2 episodes.
Yeah.
That seems, anyway.
Was he pregnant? Is that why? Is this an impreg situation?
It makes me think that, I think one of the advantages of watching all this in one run is, because again, this whole thing, which we'll talk about here, is, is it just random stories? Is it episodic, I guess, to be the better way to say that? Or can you detect some growth, but so watching this together, whether they mean to or not, like you said, watching Yates do this whole, like, my foundation and belief has been shattered, and I want to, is there another way of doing things because people are terrible to each other, and this is, Is it just that he got spurned in his mind? He got spurned?
Yeah.
And like, we can read into that just because the episode doesn't say that, but we're kind of like, I think it's just because Joe ran off with another guy.
Yeah.
And you're like...
Yeah. And he was just about to ask her out.
For that first date.
So we have, just for the record, a breaking news alert is that the cat, we've not done this quickly enough, the cat is awake and will be joining us as soon as he gets finished with his head in the Cheetos
Yeah,
bag.
that's not going to make any sound.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when we're talking about story arc, I think obviously you have some continuity there. Yates is a good guy, Yates is a bad guy, Yates is a good guy again. So there's a continuity there. But it really could have made a nice and interesting arc, even if it were just a C plot arc. Mm-hmm. And they made the choice not to do that. Mm. So, yeah.
But yeah, I do. It's an interesting story to have this. I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to button it too much, but this sort of using lowercase letters here, liberalism versus conservatism. That seems to be repeated in Third Doctor era.
Yes, and I think we're going to need to come back to that in the library section anyway.
So, all right, moving.
But again, that would be okay if that were actually what was happening. Mm-hmm. But it's not, really. It's not explored in any sort of area. So, anyway, carry on.
Well, moving on. Not to put my cards on the table, to sort of a downer. Death to the Daleks.
Yep.
Want to do this one here?
Yep, of course. An energy drain traps the Third Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith on the planet Exelon with its hostile natives, causing the travelers to make an uneasy alliance with a Marine Space Corps expedition and a squadron of Daleks. The key to escape for all of them lies in the heart of a powerful and mysterious lost city, but only if they can navigate a series of deadly traps.
And for this one, I was actually rereading the TARDIS.Wikia entries for these episodes, the story notes portions, because those are always interesting. Because I remember watching this going like, this is like the worst Dalek episode ever. Which, I mean, I'm not saying it's like a bad episode, but just comparatively speaking. Well, I don't know, there's Daleks in Manhattan, that's weird. But anyway, it's not a great use of the Daleks, which we continually...
Not as weird as Muppets take Manhattan, but...
Which we have continually talked about. We may not be the greatest Dalek fans there are.
That is a true story.
But then when I was reading the story notes, originally the Daleks weren't even in this series, or this episode. And now that I think about it, like, it would probably be fine without them.
Yeah, this is another one of those that I think... do we need Daleks? Is this just a thing? We're like, hey, remember the Daleks? That was fun, right? Let's do another one.
Yeah.
Or, hey, we have these costumes in the back.
Because, not that that's saying it's the most powerful story in the world, but with the mystery of the city and the aliens and
and the puzzles.
Yeah, the puzzle. That's like, I think that's probably half the story in a good way and literally.
Yeah.
Is just doing the RPG or role-playing game of, the Doctor and his... I meant to look up the name of the Exelon that goes with him.
Yeah.
As his companion for that portion of the puzzle. So, that was interesting. It was. It is interesting to go through the different puzzles.
We have to step on these buttons.
Or have to find the pattern.
Yeah.
Or have to... Yeah. Yeah, so, as people who play puzzle phone games or computer games, it's interesting to us, at least.
Yes.
But yeah, it
was fine.
It was fine. It was fine. Not great.
It was fine.
Because I think a way to use the Daleks that they did a little bit in this episode was they took away their power with the energy drain, so they can't exterminate, and so then they become sort of reluctant allies with the Doctor and the Marines, and all trying to do a common enemy or common goal. And so, the Daleks as a reluctant ally, that's an interesting thought.
Yep.
Like, I don't know if we've ever done Cybermen as reluctant allies. That would be an interesting exercise.
We have done sympathetic.
Right.
On both sides.
That's true.
Here's a sympathetic Dalek.
In the Ninth Doctor episode.
Yep, and here's a sympathetic... And even in the...
Oh, yeah, with the 12th Doctor, he had his... and whatever his... Yes.
Whatever he named it. And we have, sort of sympathetic Cybermen in Danny Pink.
Oh, that's true.
and
Bill.
Yeah. But not, hey, maybe we need to figure out how to work together. And I think there's a lot of loveliness in that. I think there's some possibility, and this ain't it.
Yeah. So, yeah, it just seems like Daleks use just to use a Dalek, but...
We have this costume in the back.
Well, so moving on to, one of our first sequel episodes, The Monster of Peladon.
Mm-hmm.
Want to read that?
Oh, yes. The Doctor returns to Peladon 50 years after his last visit to find Queen Thalira, daughter of the late King Peladon. Is it King of Peladon, or is Peladon the last name?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And they named a whole planet after themselves. This is like Hershey, Pennsylvania, but in a much bigger form.
I think exactly. I can't think of a better comparison.
Okay, cool. A tense labor dispute between the Pell nobility and miners is worsened when apparitions of their deity, Agador, attack and kill several miners. The Galactic Federation desperately needs trisilicate for its war against Galaxy 5 and sends in brutal ice warrior troopers to ensure production. The Doctor soon discovers a devious plot at the heart of Agador's appearances. And all I could think during the entire episode was Agadoo, do, do, which is a song, and it ruined it for me.
I was going to say Agador does throw me off, just because it's like a regular name, kind of. I mean, not in America. But, I could feel like
where?
Agador. That's, it just sounds like something like...
It's just like a Hobbit name.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like it's not like a monster name, though.
Oh, okay.
Agador sounds like, the old aunt that's going to visit. Oh, yeah, Aunt Agador's coming next Tuesday, it's not like...
She's a witch, literally.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. Yeah, there's a lot with this, and I didn't necessarily... I mean, just look... We already know that you're doing this whole workers unite thing.
Yep.
Just do that. I mean, it worked for you in the one where Joe Grant goes off and gets married. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Just work through the, everybody deserves a union moment, and it's fine. And the Queen's a good guy, but her Cardinal Richelieu is not, and this is all something we're very familiar with, and just go with it. We don't always need an aga-do-do-do.
Yeah, because I don't know if you remember from the Sarah Jane episode with Sarah Jane and Joe, where they're like, oh, I've been Peladon. Oh, I've been Peladon too.
Oh, yeah.
So, so it's an interesting one. Of course, we have Alpha Centauri.
Also, the Peladon always makes me think of the bicycles.
That's true.
Is that what they're called? Peladons,
I think
right?
So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then I just wanted to exercise, and that made everybody uncomfortable.
And then we have Alpha Centauri returning, the green.
Oh, yeah, that was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, weird, but fun.
Yeah, she's...
He.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
They specifically, because it's got a very feminine voice, but they specifically give him a male pronoun.
Okay. Well, he's it's an interesting linchpin to both episodes. Like, who do we need to bring back?
This is the what costumes do we have closest to the door?
Well, I think it's also interesting because in the previous episode, or previous Peladon episode, the Ice Warriors, who were stereotypically the bad guys, were not. I mean, they were like your Worf from Star Trek. They're kind of aggressive, but they're friendly. Whereas here they're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Ostensibly the bad guys. Because I thought that was interesting to use them that way the first time. Because it's like, oh, they're the bad guys. Oh no, they're just their regular allies.
Yeah.
Okay.
This was a lot, and it might be the same episode because I don't remember Joe and the Peladons because you have such a great memory for things like that, and I just don't. They wash through me. But the one where they were like trying to get a peace organized, and the aliens were pretending to be opposite members and causing the problems. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I'm gonna go with it.
That's what this made me think of.
He probably is.
There was a lot of extraneous stuff.
Yeah, because the last Actually, I feel like I should know. The Something of Peladon, I'm sure, is the other episode. But anyway, that's the one that's sort of the common market analogy. You know, we're all trying to come together as the Peladon is going to join the Federation, and then hijinks. But this one is a part of the Federation, but now the Federation is at war, and they're like, you got to do your part, Peladon. Give us your give us your minerals, and then you have the sort of aggressive ice warriors coming along, trying to be like whatever. But I just think there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of good elements to this episode. Like I said, it's the you have your usual class warfare with their the miners wanting their rights, and then like every Doctor Who episode, whatever, they just do it all the time, where you have like the leader who's the good, but then you have like the second guy in charge, who's
Cardinal Richelieu.
No. Well, I mean of the miners.
Oh, right, yes, also. Yeah,
you always have
the minor Cardinal Richelieu. Yeah.
The lieutenant is always the radical. You always have the leader who seems moderate,
yeah,
and the lieutenant who's always a radical, like in every Doctor Who story ever. Sometimes the radical takes over and kills the guy, or sometimes, but that's always the structure. And then, you have your role of religion, because, godless England. But you sort of have your Cardinal Richelieu.
You just sort of slid right past that one, baby. I don't know.
Religion is bad. That's what they're, So, but yeah, you sort of have that role, and where, in his Chamber of Secrets, I believe that's what it's called officially, is, I have power here, you have no power, Queen. Mm-hmm. And then you sort of then have the role of gender, because then you have the young Queen who, doesn't feel like she can do anything because she's a woman, and they don't have, she's like an accident, or
accidental monarch. Yeah,
no choice because there are no male heirs. And so she's sort of struggling with that, and so you have Sarah Jane sort of counseling her on how to be a woman. And so I mean, there's stuff in this episode, but it does just drag for whatever reason.
Thing. Yeah, I feel like, and here you'll enjoy this.
Okay,
you ready for this? You ready? You ready to be excited?
Mm-hmm.
If this were a Star Trek episode, you would have all of those things without Agador and the ice people, mm-hmm. and you would have. Hey, we've landed on this island where they're having union issues, and also the Queen isn't sure, and Troy would be the one talking to the Queen and being like, so tell me how you feel about this, and here are some suggestions, and have you tried some lipstick, and then obviously Picard and number one would be Riker, would be working on, are you appreciating all that? I'm getting all the names and everything. And they would be working with trying to figure out the miners and the Cardinal Richelieu, and they would be, and all of those things.
Godless Star Trek as well. Yes.
Godless Star Trek as well. But I mean, it doesn't have to, that doesn't add anything.
Well, like the thing, I guess that it doesn't confuse me, but again, having watched this stuff, kind of recently, where I know, if you're watching this in real time, it would have been like a year or two later. I thought we solved Agador. Like, the Doctor had already proven, like, that's just like a puppy or, whatever, the last time. And it's still, like, I thought he had debunked the religion, for lack of a better word, last time he was there, but it's still going strong, despite him being like, no, it's just a thing that I sing lullabies to.
Again, coming back to my Star Trek analogies, it's like Lower Decks that we watched this last week, where they made first contact and disproved all these things, and then left, and people are still doing them.
You're still obeying Landru? Anyway, yes.
Yeah. See, look at my I want extra points in this marriage for having my Star Trek analogies.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, but I thought there was definitely a lot going on. Because there's a lot of these stories, they go on, and there's not necessarily a lot. But they were certainly trying for a lot in this episode.
Yes. And I didn't think they needed to. But that's all right. That's all right.
All right. Well, that's this penultimate episode. We now
Planet
go to
of the Spiders.
Planet of the Spiders. So, finish us up.
The blue crystal that the Doctor took from Metabellus 3 in a previous adventure is desperately sought by the Eight Legs, a race of mutated spiders, as the final element in their plan for universal domination. With help from an old mentor, the Doctor realizes the only way to foil the plot is to make the ultimate sacrifice. The Doctor must risk death to return to the cave of the Great One and save the universe.
So how'd you think of this? Is sort of this is just me. What distracts me this episode, and it's bad. It's bad on my part. But like this whole meditation center, that's fine. That doesn't throw me off. But it's like all the guys, because it's all guys, all the guys there just look like the worst people. Like, just like accountants or something. Like,
they are not the people you expect to be.
And like, I'm not judging on appearance. I'm 100% judging appearance, and I shouldn't be. It just seems like the random casting just like picked anyone off the street for the. They're not acting.
But
they're all good
put them
actors.
in suits and ties.
Yeah, it's just like I don't.
You want the people from Joe's last episode again to come back. Yeah.
I mean, but maybe that's the whole point of the meditation. Because I wasn't there in Britain in 1970, whatever, about who was joining this. But it just seems like, because even the villain. The bad guy, whose name escapes me, he's I mean, again, I hate to talk about appearance. He's an odd-looking guy, and so, but I don't know. It just throws me off.
To me, it's not about facial appearance or bodily appearance as much as the costume choices, which are sort of businessman. And also, he talks about, I was running this business, and then I was embarrassed, and so now I'm back here for power, and that doesn't necessarily, those aren't the sort of people who think, yes, I'll go to meditation. He
has, what's it called, economic worry?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
What do we talk about the voters?
Yes, yeah. The other thing that I think bothered me, and again, if you're going to talk about arcs or lack thereof, the whole point, ultimately, of this story is about hubris. The Doctor stole the crystal,
right?
And all of this comes back down to this.
And I'm trying.
And he's got to face that greed, as he talks about, not greed of monetary things or of power, but of knowledge. And possibly they're trying to do a dichotomy between greed of knowledge and greed of power, and at least the Doctor's greed is not that bad, but it is still about hubris. But they don't hit you with that until like the penultimate episode. And again, this feels like it should have been an arc that we see in all the episodes, this sort of beginnings of knowledge grabs and going a little further than he needs to go for that knowledge and continuing to do that until we get to this point. And we don't get that. It's just later on his guru, and he specifically calls him a guru,
really
despite the fact that he's a Time Lord.
Really hits that first U.
Yeah. Is like, maybe you were the problem, and he's like, oh yeah, maybe I was. I should have got, and that's it.
Yeah, because having seen this before, I thought I remembered, but I mean, I feel like I've sort of changed my head that they emphasized it more than they did. Because for one thing, and I can't remember, and I could look it up, but why bother? Because I'm just going to do it off the head, and I'll be wrong, and everyone will yell at us. But anyway, as I remember, he needed the crystal for a reason. If I remember the episode where he stole the crystal, it was like it was almost not a clip, montage of like, this action was going on Earth, and Doug's like, well, I'm going to go over to whatever, because y'all are whatever, and it's like this montage, like he's getting like wrapped up by vines and stealing this and that and that.
Yes.
It's like a quick thing, but I felt like he needed the crystal for a reason. It wasn't just like, I'm going to go to Metabilius 3 and look at crystals and steal one because I think they're pretty. But I feel like he needed it for a reason. But anyway, maybe I'm wrong. So this whole, like, I just stole it just because I'm a stealer. But anyway,
I think it's an interesting opposition to the New Who, where they're playing a huge long game. And, the crack in the wall, and 5 years later, you're like, oh, that's where he was going with that.
Or was it?
5 years hyperbole, but you know what I mean. Yeah. Whereas this, it's the complete opposite.
Well, I was thinking...
he stole it 4 billion episodes ago. And now we're going to refer back to it, but this is new, so we're just making it up as we go. We've not dropped any breadcrumbs anywhere.
Because I was thinking, and not necessarily that they hit the nail on the head with this per se, but I'm thinking of the 10th Doctor. The 10th Doctor during his movie era, the specials parts, where you sort of had the Time Lord victorious, where he's pushing how much powerful he is, and or what he can do, what he's allowing himself to do, and and then you get to Water of Mars, where he literally says, "Time Lord victorious, I'm in charge of time. I'm the last Time Lord left." And then the scientist kills herself, and then maybe I don't have it. But anyway, sort of leading up to that, sort of the greed of he's been last of the Time Lords was sort of, I feel like Ten's theme. You can argue, folks, but I feel like that was sort of his big thing. And then what does that mean to be the last of the Time Lords? So. Because then they return with his regeneration story, and so he has to confront what does it mean to be... Anyway, blah, blah, blah. But, with this one...
But there are breadcrumbs. There are breadcrumbs. And there are no breadcrumbs. There are no breadcrumbs all the way through this. Yates shows up, hubris, I don't know, whatevs. Here we go. We're just chucking stuff at a wall and see if it sticks.
Well, what do you think of it as a regeneration story? And you can define that as you want. One way I would define that is acknowledging this doctor's, whatever one it is, past. We'll see both in Classic and in New Who, like when they actually regenerate, you always bring back all the companions somehow, in some way. And so with this one, you quote unquote bring back Jo. You don't bring back Liz Shaw because I guess we just don't acknowledge her anymore. And then you bring back Yates, I suppose. And then I don't know, but did you feel like? And maybe you don't need that. I'm just saying that's what they do sometimes. But what did you think of it as a regeneration story of?
In that sense,
a closing chapter.
In terms of a closing chapter, it didn't work. But again, to me, that's about the breadcrumbs. You don't have the redemption arc for Yates. If all of this had been leading, if the entire season had been leading up to this hubris moment that now he has to regenerate to atone in some way. I mean, at least with the second Doctor, even though you don't get quite as much build up, you do get the whole he regenerates as part of a redemption arc. Even if it's not a very long one. And this one is like literally a 20-minute one. And I don't think it works for me in that sense.
And I guess the thing, and maybe I just wasn't paying attention watching it this time, but I think I was. For some reason, I had thought that they had really emphasized more the Doctor's fear of death, of the Spider Queen, of the Great One. It's weird that the Spider Queen is actually not it's the Great One or whatever it's called. Anyway, but like to me, introducing the element is like 15 seconds. It's like he's going to the cave, and maybe I know the cave's not good for him. Like it's going to kill him if he goes in the cave. For some reason, I missed it this time. But I mean, I knew that. But anyway, but the Great One's like, you're scared of me. You're scared, and that's your fear. And I'm like, okay, that seems random. He's just scared of spiders, or I mean, no, he's not scared of spiders. Anyway,
it's not. There's no build up. Yeah. We're gonna have to call this episode something about breadcrumbs. More breadcrumbs were needed throughout. With the Doctor's arc, with Yates's arc, with everybody's arc. Even Jo was just like, I like my life, I like my life, I like my life. Hey, I'm gonna marry this guy. Bye. Which is also not dissimilar to Susan's exit. So there you go.
And then, I don't know, not go all the way into this. I don't know, because I guess, blanking on the guy's name, the main producer of Doctor Who. I know there's two of them. I'm just blanking on the names.
Roger or something?
No, but I can't remember. I'm sorry, people. I know you know. The two producers of the Third Doctor era, the one that's not the other one, was a Buddhist.
Yes.
And so, but I thought, like, I don't know if he did himself a great service. I mean, I'm sure he's not, advertising his beliefs per se. I mean, maybe he is. But, like, if you are, it's not doing a great job for, meditation centers is where creepy guys go and do creepy things.
Time Lords appropriate. And, there's a lot. And then there's a Flowers from Algernon.
What do you think of that?
It was very strange. Like, there's no suggestion that it fixes, quote unquote,
right,
fixes people in any way, shape, or form. So why all of a sudden does Tommy become erudite?
Well, I guess the way they introduced is that the crystal is what made the Great One. It just makes you...
Yeah, but everybody else is out there handling it, and this doesn't happen.
I guess you got to stare at it when it does a zoo, 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 zoo. I don't know.
Right, for you. Right. And then you have to have a little bit of Algernon.
And also the actual plot, again, digging deep into it.
Not mice, but spiders, and I don't know.
The actual plot of the Great One, like, the Doctor didn't have to do anything. There's no foiling. Like, you give her what she wants. Like, the whole episode is about the Great One getting the crystal. But she gets it, and her machine or whatever, crystal machine, whatever it is shoddy. Like, it's not going to work. So it's like...
Meh.
She could have just gotten it and blown herself up. Like, we didn't have to be involved with this story at all.
Yeah.
And she would have blown herself up.
Yeah.
You know, like, we should have just given her the crystal in episode 1 and been, like, done. But anyway. So, yeah. So, well, and then what do you think of you know, we'll get the whole big goodbye, but at least the actual regeneration.
Again, it goes straight into the doctors hanging out with the spider, and then Sarah Jane comes into unit, and Brigadier's like, "Oh, you're back again," and she's like, "Well, it's been 3 weeks, and I just keep hoping he's coming back." It's all of this tell. Like, we have had this, what is it, 4 or 6 episode
6, yeah.
arc.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been doing on with the Tommy story, for goodness sakes. And then we get 5 minutes of, "Oh, he's been gone for 3 weeks. I've been really worried. Can't you tell in the last 60 seconds you've seen me? And oh, there he is, but now he's dying." And so again, we don't get that build up of any sort of tension.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that during the time when it was first airing live and everybody knew that this was the next step, maybe that helped build it up. But, yeah, meh.
Do you think that the Third Doctor gets it? And not that I'm saying he needs one, but we're used to it in the New Who era. You know, you have these monologues at the end. Does the Third Doctor get any sort of moment or goodbye or anything that you feel like?
Yeah, a little bit. Is that a tear? And I'll be honest, I didn't hate the regeneration itself. There are others. The next regeneration. Oh no, it's 5 to 6, isn't it? With the ghosty ghost guy.
No,
and
that's the next
it
one.
It is 4 to 5. Oh, that's terrible.
Which I think is interesting if you're concerned about canon and technicalities, which I am. You know, so far. So just a reminder, I know we all know. So 1 to 2 was just natural. You know, he got old and that was it. 2 was a forced regeneration, so the Time Lords made him regenerate. 3 to 4, he actually needed Koji, whatever his name. I feel like I'm, you know, anyway.
Yeah.
The dude, the Time Lord dude projection coaxed it along. Now maybe it would have, but there's sort of help. And then you have 4 to 5, you have the ghost help. And so I feel like 5 to 6 is sort of like the next natural one after 1 to 2, you know?
Yeah.
There's no help. It just happens.
Yeah.
And the TARDIS,
Yeah.
naturally. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's weird. But I do appreciate the Brigadier being, well, here we go again. I do. Yeah, I like it. I'm not mad about it.
All right. Well, any final thoughts about the last season of John Pertwee?
I'm sad to see John Pertwee go.
Mm-hmm.
I've enjoyed Pertwee a lot. Mm-hmm. I think he lands. When we're done with a full rewatch, we're gonna have to go back and do our doctor list.
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Because I think Pertwee would go right up there for me.
One thing I was thinking of as sort of final thoughts watching this series, and maybe because, you know, having watched some of the Blu-ray extras, we don't have all the seasons on Blu-ray, but the ones we do, you know, the team was all saying goodbye. Obviously, you had Delgado passing away,
Mm-hmm.
you had Joe leaving, you had kind of the production team getting ready to leave, and then John getting ready to leave.
There was that girl who played Liz, but nobody remembers her.
Exactly. No, we don't
Liz
talk about
Shaw,
her.
yeah.
But that...
She made one other movie we know of, but that wasn't very good.
But that... It just... Watching this series, I was like, this isn't as great as the others. But I don't know if that was just me sort of, like, being because everyone's leaving. It just sort of has this feeling of, like, you know, the peak Third Doctor was maybe the last season, you know, or something. And you can agree or disagree. But I don't think it's true, because we just talked about all the episodes, and I'm not here saying I hate all these episodes. So I don't know. It was just one of the things watching. It's like, I feel like something's missing, but I don't know.
Well, and I think that it's, to be completely honest, Joe Grant, because that season, or those few seasons, built up that whole family of Unit and Joe and the Doctor and all of them. And Sarah Jane is fantastic, but it doesn't have that familial feeling that Joe Grant...
She's the Rook.
Joe Grant is, without a doubt, the Third Doctor's companion. Sarah Jane is infamous and will live forever as the main, in my opinion, companion. When you think of a Doctor companion, she's the first one that comes to mind. But Jo Grant is the third Doctor's companion.
All right, well, with that, let's go into the TARDIS library.
Whoosh, 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 whoosh.
When you close your eyes,
I go to the library.
go to the library now.
Well, for this version of the library, we sort of, having watched now the entire Third Doctor era, we kind of rewatched Clever Dick Films' coverage of the Jon Pertwee era, because a lot of these we've watched, and we were like, oh, we know some of this.
Yeah.
But now we know all of it.
It's nice to get a,
So any new appreciation, or any comments about the Third Doctor era as a whole, or any new appreciation, having watched the video again now, having seen all of the Jon Pertwee era?
First of all, I just always have general... every time I watch one of the Clever Dick YouTube videos, I continue to just be in awe of Richard. And first of all, the work that he puts in, and second of all, his absolute affection for Doctor Who. It's just such a lovely thing to watch what is clearly a labor of love. I mean, he doesn't have an unkind thing to say, really. I mean, he gives us a little
Sometimes,
bit of tea, but he is not going to be unkind at all. And so
Just don't talk about dimensions and time.
Delight. And, if he's got something ugly to say, we'll say no more about that. So that's fun. Not necessarily new information, just sort of highlighting... Pertwee's wanting to be an action figure, and maybe new information in that audiences at the time sort of expected Pertwee to be more of a comedian because that's the world he had worked in.
And coming from the Second Doctor era as well.
And coming from, so that combination. And so then for him to turn that on his head... And the idea that this is an idealized version of Jon Pertwee himself. And I just really love Pertwee. I just really, really do.
It makes me, and again, it strikes me, and maybe I'm wrong in saying this, and next time we talk to Richard, he can correct me, that they often hire the actor based on sort of a, what's the word I'm looking for, casting stereotype, and often get the reverse. Because I don't know. He mentions a little bit of the video of how John got cast, but were they expecting John the comedian to be more the Second Doctor? But then they give him the directorial, or whoever, whichever director it was, gives him the directorial, just be Jon Pertwee. So maybe they knew what they were getting. I don't know. Did they know he's sort of the. I'm trying to compare who someone nowadays. I don't know, like a Jay Leno or something. Like, do they know he has like all these cars in his garage and like that? Like is he just a wannabe? Well, not a wannabe. I'm not trying to play it down any, but action hero James Bond. And so that's what they were going to get. But that he's the gentleman, the whatever.
Well, and it's always interesting because you see actors who want to try things against type.
Right.
And I know you're getting tired of hearing about Chris Evans, but it does, because we're watching Defending Jacob, which is a completely sort of antithesis to the Captain America. He's going completely against type in that way. But in the same sense, we're getting so much of it bleeds in. And I think it does that with Pertwee as well. He's going completely against type. He's not playing the sort of slapstick... Over the top.
Funny voices. I mean...
Comedian. Mm-hmm. But we do get the bleed-throughs, when he dresses himself up as the chambermaid. And also, even in the fighting and things like that, there's this sort of over-the-top... Yeah. So you've got this guy who's trying desperately to play against the type that he's been stereotyped in, with varying degrees of success. And there's a lot of success in there, which is why I think it's very interesting that he goes from this to Wurzel.
Yes.
Goes right back into it.
Well, I've done that now. Back to costumes and voices.
Which is why I assume that after Defending Jacob, Chris Evans is going to go back into the Fantastic Four remake.
Jesus. That's a joke, people.
It is a joke. He's not. I don't think he'll do that. But yeah, I find actor choices, obviously you don't ever want to be pigeonholed, but at the same time, if something works and if something's, I don't know. It's not something I've ever had to be faced with. Even though sometimes the guy who writes my scripts is like, I'm just going to make you a drunk on stage.
You asked me to.
You do that.
That's why. I think it's interesting because sometimes we do the whole, every doctor actor just does the 3 years and that's what they tell the next person. But I thought it was interesting how and I've never thought about it, but it's certainly true. John stayed a little bit. It wasn't like, people got fired. But Pat Troughton just did his 3 years or however long it was and got out because that was it. He did his, doing new things. You can't stay around forever.
People don't want to get pigeonholed.
But
I don't think Pertwee was worried about that.
No,
he was doing something completely anti-type. He got to play around. He got to play his hero. He got to play his James Bond. He got to wear his capes.
He liked his cast.
And then when it was done, he got to fly a weird hover car that now I want to ask Richard about because he made a thing about it. And then he went off and played a
scarecrow,
crazy, creepy scarecrow for a while. So yeah, he got his break and.
Because I think, John stays a little bit. Because, Richard, the way he says in his video, that maybe one of the many reasons John left, just because a lot of people were either leaving. Delgado died, Joe left, the producers were leaving, and then so he's like, well, I don't want to be the last guy at the barn here. And then also he was saying maybe he's having some physical issues as well. Couldn't be as actiony maybe as he could be. Getting a little.
He was older to start. He started this off with white hair. The idea that he's going in and kicking alien butt and taking alien name all the way through this.
I'm trying to think. He was in his 50s. Why? Because he was born in 1919. This takes place in the 70s. So he's doing a good job physically, even in
He's doing a great job.
Yeah.
Good on him.
But because I think, John stays a little bit, Tom stays forever, and then you have more traditional with, 5 staying a short time, and 6 getting fired, and then 7 getting canceled, and then, So
and I think some of that is the time as well. Jobbing actors, compared to looking at it in present day, jobbing actors... That was a job. Yeah. That was a career of I'm doing this thing and then I'm doing this thing and then I'm doing this thing and the money's steady and I'm guest spotting here and I've got a year on this and then I'm guest spotting here. That jobbing actors were the people who worked as actors their entire lives and made a comfortable living but were in no way famous and things like that. And so I think that's sort of the idea that so many of these guys have. And from different perspectives, Troughton and even to an extent Pertwee are like, yep, this is my day job for a while and I'm looking for a change now, so I'm moving on. Whereas then people like Tom Baker are like, hey, I'll retire here if you want me to, and that's the way people with regular jobs feel. Sometimes they want to move on to new things, and sometimes they're like, nope, comfortable, I'll stay until you send me away. Very much, I don't know if you saw any of this, and I'm going a little bit off piste, ladies and gentlemen, I apologize. But the interview with, the one, her name escapes me, the woman who plays Meredith Grey on Grey's Anatomy. Who just recently gave an interview where she was like, "This is my job. I have
doing this forever.
I have stayed here for 14 years because it's a steady income, and I'm raising a family, and I don't have any interest in going out and auditioning and not having that stability. And screw you if you don't like it.
Right.
And I think that it was a real shock when she gave that because everybody's like, wait, what? And she's like, this is my job. I went to school for this, and now I have a job, and it gives me a steady income, and so now I can go do things like raise my family while I'm doing this job, and no, I'm not going to audition for other stuff. Why would I do, And so I think you get both kinds, and both kinds are okay.
Yeah, because I think, and I don't know this for a fact, this is sort of what I've gleaned, so maybe Richard or whoever can tell me I'm wrong. You know, Bill Hartnell loved being the Doctor, because, I mean, he made it the role, but he sort of, that was his then role. I'm the Doctor, you know, and so, you know, that was his role in life. You know, he got fired. But anyway, but I don't know.
But, he was also really old.
Yeah. Not really old, but, you know, he was old. Anyway. But
considering his timeline.
Yes. But Pat Troughton, I don't think necessarily was that. You know, I think he was happy to move on. Not that, like, he didn't hate the role, but he's like, yeah, you know.
This was a job. It was fun. Off I go.
I think John was the Doctor. I think Tom was the Doctor. I think, you know, I don't know why I'm not thinking Peter, right? You know, I can't think of David's father-in-law's last name. I don't know if Peter thought himself, you know, it's an identity thing. You know, he was like, did a role, moved on. You know, Colin was fired, but you know, not a choice there. But even Sylvester, I don't think Sylvester thinks he's done other role. You know, but I think both Bill, John, and Tom are very I'm the Doctor. Now John did, like you said, other stuff too, and happy to do it. But I think they definitely sort of bear in a good way, like that they embrace. That's the word I'm looking for. Embrace the role, and that we're more than happy to just sort of be the Doctor.
Yeah, like, and again,
even when they're not filming, like doing other events, and
that is not a good thing or a bad thing. That is just a thing that is. And I don't think any of the Doctors in modern Who have taken it to that extent. I think the closest in my mind would actually be David Tennant.
Right.
But he's done boatloads of stuff since then. Yeah. So it's not, that is very much an identity for him, but it hasn't stopped him from doing a billion other things. And of course, Chris Eccleston is the complete antithesis of that. And it's like, I had a job for a year. Why do people still want to talk about that? Nobody wants to talk about when I was in Antigone for the National Theater. What's going on here? I was an excellent working class Creon. And so, I think
Working Class Creon should have been his biography title.
So I think it's neither good nor bad. You see both, and I don't think it changes what makes you a good Doctor, whether or not that's the thing that you want to encompass or not. And
then, sort of to kind of wrap up, Barry Letts and Terrence Dix are the producers. I finally looked it up.
Yes.
I was like, I know I'm just going to say it wrong. But anyway, I mean, I feel like the fundamental stories of Barry and Terry, were very, you know, they're, and this may be the same as we go throughout the series, but it seems like, especially Third Doctor, like, it's really British stories. I mean, they're applicable to other societies as well, but it's very much often the classes, you know, I don't say it.
But also very much of the time.
A lot about who has the power, who doesn't.
70s and 80s Britain is very much, you know, blue collar versus white collar, and very, very classist, and you know, milk bottles, and Margaret Thatcher taking away milk from babies and minors, and all of those sorts of things. I think it's very indicative of the time, but also looking back at it, really modern. I mean, a lot of the, you know, the hippie one is it could just as easily be set in 2020 and get away with it. You know, we're
the Green New Death meets the Green New Deal.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing very similar issues coming back into the forefront, so that's very interesting to watch it with that perspective.
Yeah, because I think that the characters all sort of work, because I think even though when you have this semi-military or military organization, but the Brigadier isn't crazy, you know. I mean, like, is very much a military man, but he's not over the top.
He's not militaristic trope.
I mean, there are times, you know, where he does go, in the Doctor's opinion, and maybe not too far, or does the military solution. I'm trying to think of the Silurians, because he blows up the Silurians, and the Doctor's like, well, that's not good. But you know, he still is open to things, you know.
Very much so. I mean, he
eats his mushroom burger or whatever it was, or mushroom steak or whatever it was.
It never feels like he is the authority, the end all and the be all, and that's the way he views himself.
Because I feel like, with the Doctor, typically in a story, challenging authority in whatever its forms, authoritarian. I'm trying to think. I was getting at you. Whether it's on Earth or whether it's an alien or whether it's whatever. That's typically the Doctor's role. But again, because I think a lot of these stories are challenging power and unequal power or segregation or the role of various people in society, and some of it's more explicit than others. Again, wasn't alive in 70s Britain, so I can't tell you about any racial identity
or
issues.
Any 70s anything.
So I don't know how on the mark they were trying to be about racial things, especially even in the greater Commonwealth, because you sort of had and so they certainly, but I think a little bit more explicit. Its role of women. And then the role of class, and then, to the extent...
And I think that we see those hard and fast, sort of black and white issues portrayed to the side. That is what the Doctor and Unit come into. Whereas then you have the Doctor, the ultimate rebel, and the Brigadier, the ultimate military man. But we never see them straight up butting heads, shouting at each other. They listen to each other. They take things that they're
both gentlemen.
They're both gentlemen, and they both accept the expertise of the other in areas that they may not have as much knowledge on, and
just view the other side's characteristics as sort of eccentric. In other words, the Doctor's like, oh, he's a military guy, and then the Brigadier's like, oh, he's a crazy science guy.
Yeah.
But,
we still really like each other, and we're going to listen to what... And so we almost get this model of a very major general.
Maybe. And then also just the...
very major brigadier. Anyway.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's to the nth degree, but anti-colonialism certainly is addressed in many of these stories. Obviously this is the... Again, it's not my country, but the crumbling empire, for lack of a better word. The last gasp, I suppose, of the empire. Before we were going to make Britain great again. So
don't joke.
Right.
Don't
so,
joke.
But anyway, so I like I said, it'll be interesting to evaluate or reevaluate the Third Doctor, because it was certainly my first experience, for the most part, as well as it was yours. So.
Yeah, good times.
Yep.
Good times, baby. Let's do it again.
Well, we're not. We're going to move on to the next one.
I want to do 3 again.
All right. Well, we will be moving on eventually to Tom Baker era with number 4. So until then, enjoy the Doctor's many adventures throughout time and space.
This is BBC Television.